My name is Marshana Sharp, and I'm a biology major here at UMKC with minors in both history and chemistry. This semester I took Math 130, which is Mathematics for Teachers Number Systems. It was the first online class I've taken at a college level, and as far as I'm concerned, it was a success. I didn't have any trouble with using the technology, accessing the class information, or anything along those lines, so I think it went fairly well for the first one. Before going into this class, I did have a few concerns. I was worried about the educational part of this class because my major is in biology with minors in history and chemistry, as I said. So I have nothing to do with the educational side. I don't plan on being a teacher, so I was slightly concerned that I wasn't going to be able to grasp the concepts of the educational part of this class since it is math for teachers. However, once we got into the class, I saw it was more math oriented with supplements with the education connecting the math to the educational part. Therefore, I didn't really have any trouble with it. It was pretty easy after the first week, seeing how things were going to be incorporated. So that took care of those worries pretty fast. I didn't struggle with that at all, which is a really, really big relief once I got into the class. I was pretty concerned going in. On top of that, going into the class, I was worried about keeping up with the pace of the course, not being able to make sure my assignments were due on time. I was afraid I was going to forget assignments. However, once I got into it, I was able to work at my own pace, complete assignments in plenty of time. It never really was a big problem for me trying to get things done, turned in by the deadlines, even with my busy schedule. I was able to work at my own pace still, spend the time on things that I felt were important or that I wasn't grasping, that I needed to review a few more times, even if it was just because it had been a while since I'd seen it the last time, or if it was a new concept that I wasn't understanding and wanted to prepare for the test or the quizzes. I was able to decide myself what was most important for me to spend my time on and what I understood and could kind of move a little bit faster pace with. So that was a huge bonus for me, being able to kind of dedicate my time to what I felt was important in the class as I got into it, what I needed to spend more time on, instead of just getting a general overview like you would in a normal classroom. I think the online classroom allows for a little bit more of an individualized learning plan. The student can kind of help set up, and I know that the instructors are there to help along the way in all the classes, especially in this one. She's got it planned out very well, and it worked well. It flowed great. I didn't have any problems with the way the class was set up. I would say on average I spent about 1.5 to 3 hours each week working on the homework assignments and the quizzes. There are usually about 2 homework assignments and 1 quiz each week. Sounds like a little bit of work. It's not too bad, not time consuming. Like I said, I was able to teach myself and make it through the classes assignments that week in 1.5 to 3 hours. The weeks we did have tests, I obviously spent a little more time on that just because I was pretty meticulous, making sure that I got my answers right, checking through it, making sure that, I did understand the concepts before I went in and took the test. That way I got a good grade in the class. So with that given, weeks that you have a test in a normal class, you're also going to spend a little more time studying and preparing for that. So I don't think this on average is any more time consuming. In fact, I think it's less time consuming because you're not sitting through class lecture, going home and doing all the work separately. On top of that, you can kind of incorporate your lecture into the time you're working on your homework at the same time, which does help save time. It's great for busy schedules. Worked great with my other classes, didn't have any huge conflicts with that, which was a great deal this semester, considering I had some other really hard classes. I was extremely shocked when I got into the class and started looking at the way the assignments were set up. The fact that you get, I think, 15 attempts at each homework question, unlimited attempts at each quiz, and 2 attempts at each test is very rare, but it is extremely helpful in this class situation, the way the classroom is set up, just because you don't have that face-to-face instruction with the instructor necessarily, but you do have the ability to work through the class at your own pace, to go through and look at the different problems, utilize the support systems that are in place for the class. And if you get it wrong, it wasn't a huge concern the first time. You got it wrong, figure out how to do it correctly, and then you could move on and do it and get it right the next time, which was a huge relief. It wasn't as stressful as a normal class situation in my mind. And so that was great. Less stress, more time to be able to say, I didn't understand it. I took some time, relearned it. Now I get it, and I'm able to prove to myself that I now understand the material. So I really like the way the assignments are set up in this class. I think it's a great way to promote the learning in the classroom, and I really, really enjoyed that. Coming into this class, I did have a goal. I do some volunteer work at local elementary schools, and that's kind of what prompted me to take this class, even though it's for educators. I try to do tutoring, and I love math. I'm never really had any hard or difficulties with math. It's usually pretty easy for me. But I've noticed that just because it's easy for me does not mean I know how to explain it well to another student. If that student doesn't function and think the way that I do, I find it difficult to be able to explain to the student how to get the answer, how to solve the problem, how to go through the process. And this course has helped me meet that goal on how to do those things, learning how to communicate to the student and show them that there is more than one way to come up with the answer to the question or to solve that problem, and it's not just a set pathway like I thought before. Because when I came into this class, I was thinking, if there's one way to solve that problem, it's the way that I know, that's the correct way, and this is how I try to teach it. Not all kids understand the way I would explain things, and that was frustrating for me because I couldn't understand how to change the way I was explaining things so that the student would understand what I'm saying. And after coming out of this class, I now see that there are multiple ways to approach problems, multiple ways to explain it, and it has been beneficial since I've been in there trying to help some of those students. I've learned how to be able to communicate with them on a different level and in a different way of explaining things, which has been a really, really great tool to have. I'd love to take another online course, and I really, really would love for UMKC to offer more online courses, especially in the sciences, which there seem to be very few of those available at this point in time. But this course is just, it's been amazing for me this semester. It's allowed me to work around my class schedule, allowed me to have an extra day of work where I'm actually working during the day, not working on nights, but then I can take the time to do the homework on the weekends or during the evenings after I get off work. So the online factor of this class has been nothing but amazing for me. As far as support for the class, there are a lot of options. There's being able to obviously communicate via email, but there's also the Piazza blog system where you can get on there and communicate with other students and the teacher how to solve problems. Hey, I'm running into these errors, which does seem to be pretty useful as long as people are utilizing it. And then we've also recently been introduced to NetTutor, which UMKC is trying to implement as far as I understand. And when I got on there and tried to use the NetTutor, I only ran into a minor difficulty and quite frankly was a big fan of the NetTutor system. When I was in there, my problem ran up that once I pulled the whiteboard up to be able to communicate with the tutor, it wouldn't let me move it. So what happened at the bottom of the whiteboard screen I wasn't able to see, but I was simply able to ask the tutor if they could type higher up on the screen. That way I could see what they were typing, and they were fine with that, and everything went well. It was easily resolved, and I was able to continue on with my session. As far as everything else in the NetTutor, it was user-friendly. There were many options: dropping in a picture, opening up a URL, using the math tools, inserting equations, and the tutor was able to communicate with me. And when the question I had asked them, there were multiple parts to it, and so instead of them just giving me a full-out response like you would get in an email or many of the other forms of support, you're able to stop them at the points where you aren't understanding and say, hey, I need you to explain this farther, or hey, where did this number come from, or how do you get to this part of the solution before moving on? Because if you get confused in the second or third step, then you're going to stay confused throughout the whole thing, where that may be the only step that's tripping you up in the whole problem. So it was really nice being able to have that pretty much live communication with that tutor, and whenever it was convenient for me. I didn't have to worry about trying to make to office hours or contact during office hours. I was able to get on whenever I needed to, and I think the time I actually happened to get on was like at 11 o'clock at night, when most other tutors aren't going to be available, but when it was convenient for me. So that was extremely helpful. I was very fond of NetTutor, and if it's offered for other online classes, I would highly suggest using it. I would utilize it if it was available. and I would really like to see it implemented in classrooms that aren't even online classrooms, but standard traditional classrooms, having NetTutor available so that students can get in there and access that. And maybe they can't meet with their professor during office hours, or they can't make it to the tutoring center on campus. They can get on whenever it is convenient for them, and I think that would be a great way to promote learning on campus, especially in those classes that require having the time spent on certain subjects to understand things, going through practice problems like in math. I am extremely excited to have had the chance to experience an online class, and I'm extremely happy that it went well and that I didn't run into any major difficulties during this class. So I am so happy to be ready for break here, and I appreciate having such a great semester. Thanks.